How's it going, hockey fans? Reed Hunsaker here, introducing a new series here on Penalty Box Radio. And what we're going to do, we're going to be looking at what NHL GMs did over the offseason. We kick off the series tonight with the Anaheim Ducks, and we'll eventually cover all 30 NHL teams before the puck drops on the 2016-2017 season. So starting out with the Ducks, the big news in the offseason was Bruce Boudreau is out as head coach, and GM Bob Murray brings in Randy Carlyle, who brought Anaheim a Stanley Cup in 2007, but also was fired in 2011 by GM Bob Murray after a rough start. So my big question is, should the collection of Game 7 losses be on the players or on the coaching staff? Now, GM Bob Murray obviously put that pressure on Bruce Boudreau, who, the Anaheim Ducks haven't really got it done in Game 7 this past year against Nashville and the year before against Chicago in the Western Conference Finals. Now, we look at that Western Conference Final this past year against Nashville. Corey Perry, a perennial 30-goal scorer, if not 40-goal man for the Anaheim Ducks, had 0 goals in 7 games for the Ducks. John Gibson started the first 2 games for Anaheim, kind of a young goalie, but, he's had a lot of, big game experience playing for Team USA. He had a 3.08 goals against average and a 90% save percentage, which, is very below average what you'd expect out of John Gibson. And, it was really tough for Anaheim to come back after going down 0-2, especially with that home ice advantage. So like we said, Carlyle, he won the cup with Anaheim in 2007, but they had exceptional years from players on that team like Teemu Selanne, who at 36 posted 48 goals and 94 points, which is just incredible for that age. You don't see any NHL players doing that today. Chris Pronger, a very good stay-at-home defenseman, also, contributed a lot offensively that year with 59 points in 66 games played. And, that was a point total that he never repeated after that season where they won the cup. You obviously talk about JSG Guerre, a great goaltender, went 13-4 with a 1.97 goals against average and a 92.2% save percentage in 18 games played. And you also had a younger and faster Perry and Getzlaf, who combined for 32 points in 42 games played. So you look at the way Carlyle has left both Anaheim and Toronto, it's a little bit troubling looking at some of his possession numbers. And we start with Toronto. His even strength shot attempts was at 49% when he was hired, and then fell down to 46%, then 44%, went up a little bit to 46%. He was fired that year, and the year after Carlyle left, that number went from 46 to 51%, which is a huge number when you talk about possession numbers. And then Anaheim under Bruce Boudreau last year, their possession numbers, even strength shot attempts, was 53.3%, and that was number 2 in the NHL. So questionable move by Bob Murray. I know a lot of fans were not happy with that at all. My second storyline is Anaheim still a Stanley Cup contender. You talk about guys like Jamie McGinn, David Perron, Chris Stewart, Chris Horkoff. They're all gone. Now you do bring Vermette, Jared Boll, Mason Raymond in, but that's a lot of depth signings, and as a Flames fan, I really didn't see much out of the free agent signing of Mason Raymond. That's why we released him on waivers. Same with Vermette, Arizona doing the same thing there, and Jared Boll, kind of a 6 to 7 minute a game player on that third or fourth line in Columbus. I think Anaheim is going to have to rely a lot on, their youngsters and Shea Theodore and Nick Ritchie. Looking at dailyfaceoff.com, they do have Nick Ritchie starting on that left wing on that first line with Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf. So that's a big, test for the youngster. And, that's going to be a very tough and big line to stop with Anaheim. I think Nick Ritchie's about 230 pounds. So he plays that physical style game. He fits right in. Do I really think he's going to be a point producer in the NHL? It's tough to say. You don't really see too many power forwards, being big point producers, especially in this, faster and more skill-based NHL that we see today. So the big three are getting older. You have Perry at 31. He has 5 years left at 8.625 cap. You have Getzlaf, who's also at 31 years old. He also has 5 years left at 8.25 cap. Kessler's a year older at 32. He has 6 years left at 6.875. So that's a lot of salary cap that you're investing in your guys. It's a little bit questionable to me why Bob Murray is, letting guys like your Chris Stewarts or your Jamie McGinns or your David Perrons walk to free agency when, the time to win is now for Anaheim. And it's going to be really tough, especially with less depth, to get, past your Chicago's, past your Anaheim, or past your Los Angeles, and past your Nashvilles, who, beat them in 7 games last year. And then you obviously have to talk about Frederik Andersen getting traded to the Leafs. I think John Gibson is ready. I don't think that playoff, that 2-game section was, indicative of how good of or how bad of a goaltender he is. With goaltenders, you got to be careful. John Gibson really has a very good upside. So I really think Gibson is the guy moving forward in Anaheim. And then Jonathan Bernier, they brought in from the Leafs. So looking at the lineup, you have, like I said, you have Nick Ritchie, Getzlaf, and Perry on that top line. That's going to be a very tough line to stop. Talk about controlling possession in the corners and really just, getting in front of the net. That's what Corey Perry does best. The second line is going to be Cogliano, Kessler, and Silverberg. A pretty solid top 6 out of Anaheim. The only question for me is, can Kessler stay healthy? He is 32. And not only can he stay healthy, I think a lot of the question is, can he be a point producer at his age and with the style of play that he does bring to the table? With that third line, I had a couple question marks because, you do have Mason Raymond and, you really don't know where to fit him into this roster. I have Ricard Raquel at center. I think that's a good, matchup with Mason Raymond, but I wouldn't expect anything special or, a rejuvenation of sorts of his career out of Mason Raymond. And then Garbett on that right wing. The fourth line, Wagner, Vermette, and Bull. You might see Vermette jump up to that third line, but, I think Arizona didn't really see much in Vermette. That's why they waived him. And that's, why, you talk about Arizona as a team that has a lot of depth at center. And so Vermette, I don't think is anything more than a, middle 6 player at best, if not third or fourth liner. Looking at the defense, you got Hampus Lindholm, who signed a new contract this offseason. Then I have Sami Vatanen, who also signed a contract on that right defense top pairing. Cam Fowler on that second pairing, who's a guy that, really doesn't really receive that much criticism, but in my opinion, I think he's a little bit overrated, and he really hasn't reached his full potential, since he got drafted in the first round. I have him paired up with Shea Theodore. Now, that's just kind of a guess. I think Shea Theodore is a very talented defenseman. I think he played in 36 games last year. And, I think he's a guy that matches well with Fowler's, skill set in terms of speed and the way he likes to jump in the play. So I like him on the top 4. On that third pairing, I have Simon Dupre and Kevin Bieksa. Bieksa is a guy I think has really aged a lot, and that's shown in the past. He really doesn't match up well with opposing teams with his speed. John Gibson, like we said, starting at goalie, and Jonathan Bernier, who I think is going to be a very good backup for Gibson because, I think Gibson's a very streaky goaltender right now. He's still young. He's still pretty raw. He needs that consistent, guy behind him, and Jonathan Bernier, who has a lot of experience, behind him to, and Bernier can come in and win some games as well. He's not a starting goaltender, but he's a fringe starter in the NHL, and he can help out with Anaheim. So my prediction for the Anaheim Ducks, I see the Ducks as a number 2 seed in the Pacific. It might be a little bit optimistic with Randy Carlyle coming in. I see the Ducks being a team that relies a lot on their top 2 lines, especially, Getzlaf, Perry, Kessler. And, it's very comparable to a Chicago in the Central Division and, a Philadelphia with Giroux and Voracek. So, that big 3 is going to be a key factor in whether or not Anaheim makes the playoffs. I see them as a 2 seed, maybe a 3 seed. The lowest I could see would be a wild card. The main thing with Anaheim, I think, is they need to get out of the gates well, last year, you know, they really struggled. They didn't really start picking up the steam till January. And, you know, I think the Calgary Flames are going to be a lot better of a team, and Edmonton's going to be a lot better. They got to get going right away. They got to build up that lead because, you know, every point matters, and, you know, points in October mean the same as they do in April. So that's what I think out of the Anaheim Ducks. You know, tomorrow we're going to be covering, or next episode we're going to be covering the Boston Bruins. If you guys want to check that out. I want to thank you guys for watching Penalty Box Radio. We'll be back soon. Thank you.